So I wanted to introduce you to a newer watch company that is pretty near and dear to my heart, and that's because it was developed from a mere idea on a piece of crumpled paper to a full-blown watch company in less than 6 months. I've spoken to the founder, Eddie, who is a personal friend of mine at this point, and I talked to him at length about the creative process and what drew him into the watchmaking world. Eddie has had many different chapters in his life, including as a firefighter and as an abstract artist, and now his latest foray is in designing and building watches from scratch, which is something that he has termed homemade, which really, at this point, is pretty much true because all of the assembly process that he does is done at his home in Rhode Island, and it's just a very cool process and a very new watch brand that I think everyone should be aware of. So the watch I'm holding here in my hands right now is one of the latest lines from the Homemade Watch Company, which is a rebrand from an earlier name that I'll get to in a little bit, but I reviewed one of their other pieces. It's their first piece that they ever made. It was called the OG. So this watch is called the Bellissimo, as I noted before, which translates to beautiful in Italian. You'll also notice the text at the bottom here that says Senza Fine, which roughly translates to endless, which to me is a nod towards the automatic movement's ability to, with enough maintenance and calibration, keep accurate time indefinitely. And so I think the name hinting towards the endless nature of an automatic movement is a really nice touch here. But don't let this name fool you, because this watch is squarely in the sports watch category. Throwing on my about 7-inch wrist, you can see it has a very sporty appeal to it. It is fairly thin, although the NATO strap does make it levitate off the wrist a little bit, but it is a beautiful watch overall, and just the design elegance of the watch and the overall case design, I think just puts together a really compelling piece at a very compelling price, and with a very compelling story. The Bellissimo is paired with a super supple 20mm brown leather NATO strap that is also homemade, as you can see on the back here. And just the strap itself is just really great because it is clearly real. This is real leather. This is not the PU leather that some other brands use or a faux leather. This is real calfskin leather. As you can see, it's an unfinished hide on the back here. Although, of course, most of what is touching your wrist is actually going to be this finished half right here. And it just has this beautiful real leather stitching. Really nice hardware, really thick hardware, as you can see here. It has thick bands. Some other NATO straps that you get from Chinese companies can be feel very cheaply made. This feels right at home and just really nicely done overall. Immediately, once you pick up this watch and you look at the overall design and you look at the strap, it clearly is what you might consider a homemade watch brand. It's obviously not the ordinary watch that you get from a mass producer or a mass-produced brand. You're clearly holding a watch that was born on a watchmaker's desk and not a production line, but I wouldn't worry too much about that because the quality of this watch still stands up very well against any other brand I've worked with. The watch's case itself measures 38mm in diameter and is just a slim 11.5mm thick. It does look a little thicker because of the NATO strap, the double loop there that keeps the watch very securely on your wrist. However, that does add a couple millimeters to the overall thickness that isn't taken into account. But again, overall, very thin bracelet here, very thin profile here. This is all paired with a fairly short 46.5mm lug-to-lug distance, so that covers most of my wrist, but not all of it. So it does create a very nice, compact feeling watch that will probably work all the way down to a 6.25-inch wrist, and probably up to a 7.5-inch wrist. Those are pretty generous parameters for most brands, and I think that this will work well. As you can see, when I do strap it down, the hardware on this is just excellent. You loop it through the double loops in the back, and this one just feels like it was made for me because it just ends right at the edge there. And it just fits very nicely on the wrist. I'm going to do a quick wrist roll here to show you just the different colors and gradients you get on this watch. It is just absolutely gorgeous. I also love the fact that you get a screw down crown on the right here that gives the watch up to 50 meters of water resistance. Some other watches have up to 100 meters, sometimes 200 meters of water resistance with just a push crown, and it just never feels that secure, whereas this, I know if it says 50 meters of water resistance, it means 50 meters of water resistance. Of course, the focus of this watch is going to be this gorgeous cardinal red dial, which varies from a deep, almost paprika red to an almost fire engine red. And that color choice is not random. The founder of Homemade Watch Company was a firefighter for over a decade, and that fiery red dial certainly speaks a lot to some of his experiences that he had in that position. Looking at the dial closer reveals a grained texture. I'm going to get a little close here. You can see on the back edges there, it's just a really nice grain styling. And what I really actually like about this watch the most are the indices. So I feel like a lot of the time we're talking about applied indices, how the indices are applied onto the top of a textured dial, let's say a Grand Seiko perhaps. And here, these are not applied indices. They are actually carved out of the dial. So what you get is this almost effect of the indices rising out of this cardinal red dial. They're really well polished, but let me see if I can get even closer. But the effect is just really cool because you feel as if they are coming out of the dial itself. And it makes it very legible. Not something that you see in a lot of brands, especially micro brands, because that is not the easiest thing to achieve. But here you can see that the effect of it is just absolutely gorgeous. Powering the Bellissimo is an NH35 automatic movement from Seiko, which allows for 41 hours of uninterrupted timekeeping. I've always been a big fan of the NH35 as a workhorse movement because it's extremely easy to service, it's durable, and it's simple. With that said, Homemade Watch Company has begun integrating some Swiss movements into more recent watches, including some pieces that are powered by the venerated Sellita SW200 movement. So if you are a Swiss movement enthusiast, there are some options in the catalog, but I think for most of us, an NH35 or a Miyota 9039 is plenty of movement for most watches, especially in the under $1,000 category. This watch here was recently on sale for a little less than $500, but it retails for a little bit over $500. And again, I think when you look at everything together, it is a fantastic value. So a more recent development that has happened with this brand in particular is a slight rebrand of the name, and that is removing the Rhode Island from the name. So at the bottom here, you can see it does say Homemade Rhode Island all the way to the bottom there, indicating that it was assembled in Rhode Island. Obviously, the pieces are coming from different jurisdictions. You have a Japanese movement. The case was carved somewhere else as well. But all the assembling does happen here in Rhode Island, and it's really cool to see a watch come together on a watchmaker's desk as opposed to a production line. The founder was kind of thinking about, what are the next steps in this brand, and one of the things was potentially removing the name Rhode Island and having a bit broader of a appeal. And so I think I do like the idea of dropping Rhode Island. I happen to grow up in Connecticut, so I was going to Rhode Island a lot. But for, the overall commercial appeal of this watch, I think it's much better to just go with Homemade Watch Company. And it seems like the founder is moving towards that. And I think it's good because, it shows a brand is listening to its enthusiasts, it's listening to the market. And the brand is clearly looking to expand from a hyper-local brand to a more mainstream appeal. And of course, the brand has already had great success both in and out of the state. And it's just so exciting to see this rebrand as a focused shift towards a more mainstream appeal. And I'm really excited to see where they go with this because I was talking to the founder and he's been doing this for about 5 months now and he's sold a little under 50 watches so far. So that's about 10 watches a month. And it's just incredible for a brand new brand to just come onto the scene and start selling watches almost instantaneously. Without any advertising, without any branding. I'm not getting paid for this video. They don't pay anyone else. And honestly, I've been wearing this on my wrist in a couple of different settings. I wore it to the office one day. I wore it out to lunch the other day. And it just fits really well with the overall aesthetic that I'm going for. So again, this is the Homemade Watch Company Bellissimo in Cardinal Red. I'll have a link to their website down below in the comment section. But definitely give them a check out. I mean, even if you don't love the design itself, they have other colors available in the same styling. They also have different versions of this watch. And the founder, as I mentioned, is always experimenting. And so he has a new dial combination, new color. He's been messing around with the indices a little bit and the chapter ring. So just definitely give them a look. And you might be surprised by something that you like on their website. Again, this is the Homemade Watch Company Bellissimo. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.